I have to tell you, I did not know what to expect. I didn't know who to expect. And so I want to acknowledge and thank all of you for taking your time and having enough faith in me, a guy that can't get it up to save his life, who's going to be ostensibly talking about extraordinary intimacy. Now that's a leap of faith if I've ever heard of one. So thank you, and I have my commitment to you that you're not going to leave empty-handed, because what I've discovered over the last, well, what we've discovered, by the way, before I go any further, I would not be here today in so many ways if it weren't for my better half, Jackie Lopez, who's back there manning the camera. So let's give her a big hand, because it definitely takes two to tango, right? And tango is putting it mildly. She is the light of my life. And I literally would not be here sharing anything with you if it hadn't been for her. So over the next 60 to 70 minutes or so that we're going to have together, I'm going to share several stories, and starting with why my prostate cancer and the resulting full clinical impotence, which means not even the blue little pill or the little yellow pill. None of those pills work, all right? Why those were the best things that have ever happened to me. They were biggest gifts. Now, the cancer I frankly could do without, but I'll take it as a gift once it's here. However, I'm not going to be so quick to say that about my impotence, because that has been a gift that keeps on giving. And I know for many of the men in this room, that might be a hard one to imagine. But bear with me, please, because I'm going to share with you something that if you had told me just 12 months ago that this is going to happen a lot, that if this was possible, I'd say you were crazy, or I'd be asking for who your drug supplier is. And because I could not have possibly imagined or even considered to design the life that I have now. And it's all because of this, because of the things that have happened. So while we are going to be talking a lot about intimacy, and I understand that that is the primary reason why most of you are here tonight. And the other thing too is let me just reassure you about something. This is not just me speaking. This is a conversation. So anytime you have questions and you feel the need or desire to ask a question at any time, put that hand up, please. And I will find the right spot just so I can complete a thought, and then I will respond to you. But this is a conversation. This is not really a speech, okay? So while, yes, I'm going to be speaking a lot about intimacy, and truly the word extraordinary intimacy comes to mind. And I'll define that here for you. And I don't use the word lightly. It is truly extraordinary. That is just the juicy icing on the cake for something much, much bigger that had to happen first. Had to happen first, otherwise, not only would we not be here tonight, but I might not have been here on this planet at this stage. And that is something that happened roughly 2 years ago. Because about 2 years ago, early September 2011, I made a choice, a very fateful choice for my life. And part of that choice was drawing a line in the proverbial sand and saying, I'm going to cross that line. And I'm never, ever going to go back. Where I came from was a lifetime of being shut down. Now, I know some of you know me, have known me for years, and you know that I've always been a very enthusiastic person. That has never changed. And I've got boyish charm. That was always there. And a warped sense of humor at times, too. But there was always a part of me that was shut down. And 2 years ago, I ended a 24-year marriage. I married a wonderful woman who was an incredible mother, to our kids, a wonderful wife to me, very supportive, and I take full responsibility for ending that relationship. And it wasn't the relationship that caused the problem. I'm the one that caused the problem for the relationship. Because you cannot have intimacy of any kind or lasting time period if you are shut down. And we live in a culture of being shut down. Our culture literally conspires for us to shut down. And another word for that is distraction. That is our drug of choice today. It's distraction. Let's watch the news. Let's go watch a movie. Let's go have sex. Sex is a distraction, by the way, if it's not being intimate. Let's take drugs. That's a distraction. Let's eat. Let's do anything but be present. Because when we're present, that's when it gets dicey. Because that's when you start feeling again. And that's what our hearts yearned for. At least that's what mine was. And I didn't know it. I just knew something was terribly wrong. And I knew I was dying inside. And that's before I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. Now I know it's tempting to think, well, yeah, you heard about it, got prostate cancer, so found Jesus and the rest is history. No, it wasn't like that. I knew somehow I was not going to make it as a human being if I didn't take some very drastic action. So we waited until we knew halfway through the marriage that the marriage wasn't going to work. The typical baby boomer marriage where you start out as soulmates and you end up as roommates. That happened. We're very respectful to each other, very supportive of each other, but there was no intimacy of any kind. So we waited till my youngest son went off to college, and then I pulled the trigger, and I pulled it hard and fast. One thing about me is that I do not do things halfway. When I drew that line and I went over the line, I jumped over to the shock of everybody that knew me. And I knew by crossing that line, I would lose every friend I had as a result of the marriage. I knew I would lose the relationship, at least temporarily, with many of my own family. And I also knew that I was going to switch careers and not have a clue on what was going to come next. And no, I'm not independently wealthy, so that was kind of like, I'm still sort of like that about that. I knew all of that was going to happen. But I did it anyway, and it saved my life. And yes, I did lose every one of those friends. Every single one. And the relationship with the immediate family is coming back. Thank goodness. And I have a glimmer of what's next for me in terms of career. You're seeing part of that right now. I have something to share with a lot of people. So that was crucial because I knew that if I didn't start opening this up, I would die. And it got to the point where after I crossed that line, I would rather die than go back. And I know sometimes that's easy to say, I'd rather die and go back. So let me make it really, really graphic for you. I would rather starve and die than go back, if that's what it's going to mean. Because we've all survived. I'm done surviving. I want to thrive now. And the only way I know how to do that now is with opening this. And what does that mean? What does it mean to have an open heart? Well, I didn't know. But then it gradually kind of came to me. And I actually, met with people, hired people. I can't tell you how many shamans I've met. Healers, life coaches. Let's see, we did water massage, all kinds of stuff. And even a few drugs here and there. But it was perfectly sanctioned, not necessarily totally legal, but it was very well, ordered. And, you just kind of explore these things. And what was so interesting is that those were all helpful, but it's really not that complicated. And it's not necessary. See, the beauty of having this kind of whether it's me up here or somebody else, the beauty of this is so you don't have to go through that shit. right? That's the beauty of it. So you don't have to go through this yourself. I mean, how many people have heard of W. Mitchell? He's right here in town. Yeah, W is he's a good friend of mine. Well, first time I saw him speak, here he is in wheelchair, and he's disfigured horribly from fire and everything else, and he's the guy who's unstoppable, and now instead of doing 10,532 things, he can do 9,223, right? And I remember seeing him for the first time years and years and years ago, and I asked him very seriously, why does it seem like people have to go through tragedy before they wake up? And it was funny because that brought laughter to the audience, and I was deadly serious. My point is, you don't have to go through all this. So I went through it just to find out you didn't have to go through. I didn't have to go through this, okay? So none of the stuff I'm going through do you have to go through either. So I don't feel like you have to do all this. The thing is to become aware of it. So what was happening is I finally became aware of what it meant to be heart open. And what it means for me, and I'm just sharing what it stands for me, and you each may have a different view of this, and I totally respect and honor that. For me, it means being absolutely vulnerable in any situation. For me, it means being totally present and feeling everything. Not just the good stuff, but the stuff that doesn't feel so good, right? Because you can't have one without the other. If you try to shut out one and just have the good stuff, that's called serotonin uptake restrictor. And it's it's a mood enhancer. And all it does is really kind of put a foggy Band-Aid over your head, and it doesn't really solve anything. I've been there too. I thought that was the solution. It isn't. And so, for me, being open-hearted is all of that. It's being totally present in the moment. And that's not easy for us to do, not in this culture, not in our current modern day of life, but it is possible. And if you're aware of it, you can constantly kind of remind yourself of that. It means being totally vulnerable. It doesn't mean you have great feelings about everything. It doesn't mean that at all. It just means everything that we put in front of our heart to protect it, which is kind of an anachronism because the heart needs no protection. I discovered that too. The heart needs no protection. Now, our ego, on the other hand, yes, that needs all kinds of protection, right? But not our heart. And so, after years and years and years, life happens. We come into this world, we're pure, heart open, and then life happens, right? This stuff starts coming like this. And my armor was out to here. And I got really good at pretending it wasn't there. And I fooled a lot of people. But not everybody. Actually, I fooled no one because there was always something that they sensed they couldn't articulate, but they knew it. They just knew it. And the thing is, I knew it too. So the foundation for everything else I'm going to share tonight is that. Without, and how appropriate, Center of the Heart Church. I mean, really, how appropriate is that? So that is the foundation. Without that, extraordinary intimacy, or any kind of deep connecting intimacy, is a concept.